A very good morning to you. Welcome to a new week. This is Business Morning here on Channels Television. It's 10 a.m. So it's time to do current and relevant business. I'm Ini John Mekwa, and we start off with what's going on in the global space. We're starting with grain. Chicago wheat rose more than 2% on Monday, extending gains from the previous session amid global supply concerns spurred by escalation of tensions in the Black Sea after last week's Ukrainian drone attack near a Russian export hub. Expectations of demand from India also underpinned wheat prices as the country considers cutting or abolishing tariffs on the grain. The most active wheat contracts on the Chicago Board of Trade was up 2.1% at $6.46 for half a bushel, after initially rising to $6.54 for half a bushel, and that's its highest since August the 2nd. Russia has military and technical capabilities to eliminate threats to security in the Black Sea. On the 2nd of August, Russia attacked Ukraine's main inland port across the Danube River from Romania, ramping up its use of force to prevent Ukraine from exporting grain. Meanwhile, India is considering cutting or abolishing wheat import taxes as the world's second biggest producer struggles to contain prices. Edible oil now. Malaysian palm oil futures were range bound on Monday as traders weighed forecasts of higher inventories against global supply concerns amid an escalation of tension in the Black Sea. The benchmark palm oil contracts for October delivery on the Bursa Malaysia Derivatives Exchange slid 1 ringgit to 3,858 ringgit per metric ton during early trade. Malaysia's palm oil inventories at the end of July likely rose to a 5-month peak as higher production offset an increase in exports. Investors await data from the Malaysian Palm Oil Board, which is scheduled for Thursday this week. Malaysia's 2023 palm oil exports could rise to 16 million metric tons from 15.72 seen a year ago. And this is according to the board, the Malaysian Palm Oil Board. Also, Dalian's most active soy oil contract slipped 0.6%, while its palm oil contract eased 0.03%. Soy oil prices on the Chicago Board of Trade were down 1%. In the crude oil markets, now prices edged down on Monday, but we're still near the highest level since mid-April after top producers Saudi Arabia and Russia pledged to keep supplies down for another month to tighten global markets further and support prices. Brent crude futures slipped 10 cents to $86.14 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude was at $82.73 a barrel, and that's down 9 cents. Both contracts notched their 6th consecutive weekly gains last week, the longest winning streak since December 2021 to January 2022. Oil prices have in recent weeks been underpinned by expectations of U.S. interest rate hikes tapering off, a reduction in OPEC Plus supplies, and hopes of stimulus boosting oil demand recovery in the world's top crude importer, China, after a dismal second quarter. In line with production cuts, Saudi Aramco has raised the official selling price for most grades it sells to Asia for a third month in September. OPEC Plus output cuts, China's stimulus measures, and an improved U.S. economic outlook are supporting crude prices, according to market analysts. Well, talking about oil, but not in very good terms here in Nigeria. The Nigerian Navy has uncovered an illegal crude oil refining depot in Yenagoa, that's the capital of Bayelsa State, where about 35,000 liters of crude oil were legally stored, much to the surprise of security operatives. The suspect are said to be on the run, but the building used for refining in Biogbolo community have now been sealed by Operation Delta Save in the state.
This is Biogbolo in Yenagoa, the Bayelsa state capital, and standing on Tamara Street are these 3 buildings in a residential area. No one could ever imagine the illegal activities going on here, as from outside, things appear to be normal. But behind the walls is a large-scale economic sabotage where suspects on a daily basis refine stolen crude.
Based on credible intelligence, the commander, Operation Delta Safe, directed a snap raid on a facility around Tamara Street, Biogolo, Bayelsa, which is being used as a reservoir for illegally refined products. And on reaching here, it was discovered that the facility is housing about 3 reservoirs with a cumulative quantity of about 35,000 liters of illegally refined products suspected to be AGO. The building has been taken over. We have 3 buildings and 3 dugout pits, with also a vehicle carrying jerry cans, about 38 jerry cans, also filled with the illegally refined products. This is just to show that the OPDS is not relenting in its efforts at getting rid of criminals whose illegal activities are impinging on the economy of the country.
Buyers of this crude, according to eyewitnesses, stay some meters away from the buildings, and the pipe that's underground discharges refined products into waiting tankers.
I never knew it's an illegal job. Now that it has happened, I don't know what next. Our fate now lies in the hand of the military and a God. Me, I don't know. And I can't say, just product he's selling to feed his family and his wife. We didn't kill anybody, neither did we do any kidnappers. We are selling product to feed our family.
This business is really affecting me because I had nothing to do, because ever since I finished my school, there's no job and nothing. And this is the only business that I use in supporting my family. And that is the only thing I do. So the business really affects me very well, seriously. Normally, I make 10,000 a month, and little expenses that I gain from customers that I use it taking care of myself.
This latest discovery comes weeks after the uncovering of illegal refineries also in Bayelsa local government area and the boundary communities in Ogbia local government area, also in Bayelsa state.
Fighting oil theft is obviously a continuous fight, and a lot of questions, come out of that. First is where are they getting the crude? How does it get there? We still have the issue with the ship that was caught last week. That is still leaving a whole lot of questions and unanswered at this time. And now we have this, and sometimes you just ask yourself, on record, Nigeria has to import its refined products, petroleum products, and yet in a local community, some locals, maybe that's who they are, we don't have them, can actually sell refined products. So it just leaves a lot of questions. Can we develop what they have for the national consumption, even if you get the individuals arrested? Can we clean up the process? And that's why the issue of modular refinery has been top on a lot of conversations since the subsidy was removed. But we also have another issue which was trending last week, and that's the issue of the loan apps. We saw FCCPC, that is the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, weighing in on the issue of loan apps, declaring some illegal, asking Google to delete others from their Play Store. And it's not new that we've been getting some strange messages tarnishing the image of some people we know and some we cannot even place their names to our phone books. But let's have, to help us understand more about this, Mr. Babatunde Rukera is the Executive Vice Chairman and Chief Executive Officer of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC, joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much for your time. Mr. Rukera, good to have you again in the studio.
Good morning. Thank you.
So we saw that for about 2 weeks now, you've been very active in your communication on activities around the loan apps. Anything new we should know about as Nigerians?
Well, there are two things that I think are important. I think consumers should do some background research before determining who to borrow money from. There's a list of approved digital money lenders. Now, that list doesn't mean that these approved digital money lenders will not violate the law. It just means that we've checked their systems, we understand how their business is, and we know where to find them. So if something goes wrong, we can find them. And there's a tracking method for them. However, what we've also seen is that some of the otherwise authorized lenders are engaging in illegal activities. And so what we've spent the past 2 weeks doing is cleaning that list up. And what we had done earlier on was to start a registration process that brought quite a number of them into mainstream regulatory framework. And we had repeatedly said to them that there are certain violations that would continue, engagement would continue with respect to. But certain violations would be one time and that's it. And those types of violations were the ones that involved defamatory messaging, naming and shaming, and harassment as methods of recovery. And so in the past few weeks, this has increased again. And so we've gone back in. And so we're periodically delisting. And so there's really not a long process anymore. We find out, we're going to take you down immediately. We would ask the banks to freeze your accounts, and we would tell Google to take you down, and you will not have the opportunity to go back. In the past 2 weeks, I think we've taken down about 2 dozen, and we're working on more right now. They will be removed from Google Play Store as we find them. We're also making sure that service providers, including banks and payment systems, gateways, stop providing services to them. We've identified a particular gateway and at least 2 banks that seem to be the platforms that most of these illegal operations use, and we're engaging with those institutions also. In the past few days, we've seen things have come down somewhat again, but it's very important that we continue with the scrutiny to make sure that things don't get out of hand again.
Is there no way to handle this from the root? Must they have come up first and then, do the wrong before we now get them down? Is there no way to, the gateway to make it stricter, so that they don't just get in?
Well, we're exploring new ways on a daily basis. I mean, the digital marketplace is the most dynamic place in the world today, and Nigeria is not excluded from other countries that are trying to get a regulatory grip on some of this. As far as putting a business online, it's pretty simple. And what we're doing is really trying to make sure that we get it at the very root. I mean, and you'd see it was investigations that have brought us this far to determining that we would work with Google to make sure they can get on the Play Store, to make sure we work with the payment gateways to withdraw the ones we don't know, and to make sure that nobody can start getting service from them without an approval from us. But the nature of these businesses was such that payment gateways didn't need to know exactly what your business was prior to providing services. Google also didn't need to have regulatory oversight over the services you provide before allowing your app to be on Google Play Store. And so it's actually a regulatory intervention that has now increased the level of visibility that gateways and Google are required to have before continuing to allow services to these businesses. So one day at a time, we're strengthening what the regulatory framework must be. The other thing you must know is that you could sit anywhere in the world and literally create a website. They use APKs, which, quite frankly, we have no way of stopping. I mean, the only way to stop an APK is to say to the Communications Commission, can you take down this website and prohibit access from Nigeria? But all they need to do is to immediately set up a different one, and a different one, and a different one. And sometimes, even when you prohibit access from Nigeria, they can use a VPN to override even that access denial to get in. So it's a very tough thing to regulate businesses on the internet. But I'd say that we've recorded remarkable success with trying to rein this in. And I say that because we can literally gauge the public space and see when the tension goes down. And we can also tell from our engagement with other regulators globally, who are also taking some learning from some of the efforts that we've succeeded with.
All right, but on the other hand, you also have the consumers, those who patronize them and maybe cannot meet up or refuse to pay back. Seeing that this money lenders, they do not receive collaterals or anything, what would be the right way to handle this with consumers who maybe at the end of the day, after taking loans, they are not paying back?
I think consumers who take loans with the intention of not paying back are part of the problem, and they constitute themselves, they constitute an impediment to consumer protection, because what they're doing is they are an obstacle to something consumers need. And some of the most virulent opposers of digital money lending are those who have been victims or have taken loans and have not paid back. But whatever the case may be, I agree that unsecured loans and consumer-type loans like digital money lenders provide are the most risky loans, and they actually plug an important gap in the value chain. However, they still must figure out ethical and legal ways to recover their loans. For instance, you just gave an example of receiving messages about people you didn't know. Perhaps you shared your telephone number with someone, and that person has, someone who that person borrowed money from now has access to your private or otherwise proprietary information. Your telephone number is your private data, and you have the prerogative to decide who you give it to and who you don't give it to. And so for someone else to have direct access because of a contractual obligation that has nothing to do with you is even a violation of your right as a third party. And so we must continue to rein this in. And globally, there are methods of recovering loans that are unsecured. For one thing, unsecured loans are the riskiest loans, like I said, and they have the highest interest rates. And so we're not even arguing about whether the interest rate should be similar to secured traditional credit systems. But there are other ways to recover these loans. There are credit systems. You have a credit bureau in Nigeria. And what the digital money lenders need to do is they're the ones who are going to develop that industry. They're the ones who are going to develop the processes. But to the extent that you can find these easier ways of harassing and shaming people, instead of doing the hard work of developing the infrastructure for determining who's creditworthy and who you should extend the loan to, we would just not allow that.
So is there do they have like an association, a common platform, that you reach them and perhaps can share with them some of the other ways that they should be approaching or embracing?
So one very important way is strengthening and broadening the framework of a credit bureau. A credit bureau, because they're using BVN. And so it means that you're able to identify the person because a BVN is an identifier. And so when you have an irresponsible borrower, blacklist that person at the credit bureau and do not extend loans to people without doing at least a minimum background check. And you can do that. And it turns out that some of the most problematic borrowers are repeat borrowers. They're chronic borrowers who have repeatedly failed to pay back previous balances. And so that has two sides to it. You have a potentially irresponsible borrower, or on the other side, you have someone who's gotten into problem, who's been harassed repeatedly and is really staving or just postponing the evil day. And both of those issues can be resolved if there's a common database that digital money lenders can go to determine if they should extend loans to people or not. Indeed, they charge all kinds of fees. You could even charge a fee for checking the background as part of the commitment or the management fee of the loan. So there are absolutely appropriate ways to do it. It's just that those are more institutional and they take a lot more work than just hiring a bunch of people to harass people and then defame people or even publish untrue libelous information about people.
All right, so I guess the FCCPC will just have to keep clearing the mess as it comes until we can get these digital money lenders to follow the right path, work with data that's in existence. Thank you so much, Mr. Irukura, for your time this morning.
Thank you.
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, the palliative is still a major one. Here in Lagos State, we've seen some packages from the Lagos State government, especially when it has to do with transportation, but everyone doesn't feel included in that package. We'll talk about that after the break. Do stay with us.
The effect of subsidy removal is taking a toll on citizens, from cost of feeding, high inflation, and above all, transportation. Government at the federal and state level is not ignorant of these challenges confronting the country. And to cushion the effect of fuel subsidy, the Lagos State Governor announced a 50% fare reduction on bus rapid transit, first and last mile buses, as well as water transportation operated by the state.
All public transportation that are being controlled by Lamata, all of the high capacity buses will be plying all the routes of Lagos at a 50% discount.
Since that announcement, there seems to be a rush for the purchase of carry cards, which serves as a means of payment for state transportation. Getting access into the BRT bus requires the use of a reloadable prepaid card that must be tapped at the entrance to confirm payment. Passengers who board BRT from Berger bus stop confirm partial deduction.
As against 400 naira per trip from Berger to Yaba, they now charge 250.
As we are tapping in, it has been reflected. We are happy. We are now paying 250 to Island to Yaba from Berger.
It is still not the solution because a lot of people could not even accept this very well. So, but if the vehicle will be available, especially those of us traveling to Ajah, I think it's all right. Unlike 2,000 that we have to take it from the bus stop.
We made a stopover at the Lagos Metropolitan Area Transport Authority to speak with the head of bus service department on the time frame for the palliative measures on transportation, which does not include Lagos Ride.
For this period, we implemented, but I'm not going to say maybe it's going to take, but to cushion the effect right now, what's happening right now.
The price cut has also been implemented on state water transportation services. But passengers want more boats procured for easy and fast movement.
Previously, before this time, the Lag ferry had been going on 1,500 per trip from Ikorodu down to Falomo and backwards. But with the announcement of the governor, it had been reduced to 750 naira for the Lag ferry. While the local boat operators they've remained stagnant at their own 2,000 naira per trip, and this has not been worked upon either by them.
Most of the time, we don't meet up with the Lagos State boat, which is Lag ferry. So we don't usually meet up with them because they have shortage of boats.
The issue there is, if you buy the ticket, you won't know the boat you are taking. Whether it's a big boat, so if you're in a hurry, you weigh your options. Then that is the issue with government-run ferry services.
The General Manager of the State Waterways Authority, Oluwadamilola Emmanuel, says the government is engaging private operators on the waterways to cut down their charges and acquire more boats for passengers.
Light Ferry has slashed their own prices, and now we're in conversation with the private operators, especially because, as you know, the private operators are all coming together. They've actually had been fragmented before, but they're all coming together now under one umbrella. On road transportation, we've seen how, Lamata and of course the Ministry of Transportation has been able to ensure that they are as one, and that's the same thing we're currently doing for the waterway, because any kind of reduction in prices has to work with one singular unitary system.
Some who have experienced the price reduction on public and private vehicles share their experience, while other commuters says the price remained the same.
We do go out every day, and nothing of such have been implemented. Normally, K2 used to be 400 naira before the governor's announcement, but now, yesterday I paid 300, so I'm even said they took it at 250. So at least there's a little bit of significant drop.
Palliative and transportation is the first step taken by the Lagos State government, but residents feel more drastic measures must be taken to alleviate the suffering of the people, even as they look forward to the distribution of food items to the vulnerable.
So while we have a lot of Lagosians who use the commercial buses, especially the government-controlled buses, smiling there because of the cut, we have the Amalgamated Union of App-Based Transport Workers saying they have not been cut in the palliative package and they want their share. We have here the General Secretary, Mr. Ayode Ibrahim, in the studio. Mr. Ibrahim, good morning.
Good morning.
So are you paying 250? Oh, you have your car, so you don't take the public transport. So you're not feeling that palliative from the government?
We are feeling it. You know, we have family too, and there are times not every day you go out with your car. Even we request for our family too. So we are customer, we are workers, we are everything. So,
but as app-based transport workers, you were saying you haven't received attention.
Yeah, let me just explain so that maybe the authority of Lagos State can really grab the important aspects of our industry. In 2002, the Lagos State government do the regulation in our industry. We did factor in 20 naira road development fee. And this money I've been removing and paid to the Lagos State. And I want to do analysis here.
So you pay it how often?
Yes.
Every day?
Yes, 20 naira per day. That is what our company remove and pay to the Lagos State government. But what I want to say here is this, so that the Lagos State government can know what the value we contributed to the economy of Lagos State. We have about 60,000 drivers in Lagos State. When we had every app company together, whether Uber, Bolt, InDrive, Lag, put them together. 20 naira, we move 1.5 million customer in the street of Lagos. Multiply 1.5 million naira with 20 naira in 7 days. That's around 240 million. And that is in a day. In 7 days, it's around 840 million naira. So when you are talking about a year, we contributed billions of naira to the economics of Lagos State. That is number one. Number two, despite the fact that we are contributing that huge amount of money to economic of Lagos State government has not deemed it fit to recognize us. First, I may not blame them, because before we are not united, we don't have a union. Everybody doing things individually. So government can have an excuse by then that we don't have a center of communication to us, so that everything that needs to come to us, because government deal with organization, which we will recognize that. Now that we have a union, I think it is the responsibility of Lagos State government to communicate to us. I will say this because that is the agreement. When they had a meeting with our company, on that meeting I have that paper that the government signed on that meeting. What they said is that all our companies should work with the representatives of the driver on their platform. But the excuse Uber and Bolt give by then is that there is no union they can relate with. But we are not telling them now that there's a union that you can relate with. Relate with us. One, the Lagos State government cannot really even factor in the data of how many people do this job. How do we know how much the Uber pay to the Lagos State government? Is it correct or not? How do we know how much Bolt pay to the Lagos State government? Is it correct or not? What we are talking here is accountability. So if we involved, we can tell, look, government, Lagos State government, what the Uber is paying you for road development of 2020 naira is not correct. We have our data. We can provide our data. Let the app company to provide their data. But now, the government have not recognized that, and they are losing a lot.
But have you tried, I mean, we have the Ministry of Transportation here in Lagos. Have you tried to reach out to the government?
Yes, most of them that may be looking at me now, this face is not a new face. In fact, when we have this union, we wrote a letter to them. I don't want to mention the name because there is no commissioner there again, but there's a permanent secretary that we met. That, look, this is what we have today. Yes, you may be hearing of many associations, different things, but now this is the union registered by federal government of Nigeria. Call us for a meeting. Let's put this thing on the table and let's see how we can benefit with this. That is why we see all those palliative cannot come to us.
So what do you want as palliative?
What we want as palliative is very simple. It's two-way. Number one, you know, the government is talking about CNG. And I was part of the NEC and the CWC of Nigeria Labour Congress. We had a meeting after the protests last week. And the options we are looking at, especially people like us that we use fuel, is CNG. And the CNG cannot be contracted. In Lagos here, I have not even seen how many stations for CNG. So, and that CNG is huge amount of money for us because we are talking about 500,000.
You're talking of the conversion now.
Yes, conversion now.
Converting your car
that's the only solution we have now, so that we can make more money. Now, we are talking about 500,000 or you are talking about 400,000, which any of our members cannot, raise it now. So now, what we are now trying to say is that, okay, fine, there's another company that we are working with. If government involved, this is the time that our company needs to invest on a worker that work for them to get money. And it's very simple. Nobody said they should just invest on us not to get their money back. They can prioritize things that, okay, the CNG is the solution now because fuel cannot make us to get money. Okay, how do we come in? We give out the data. Whoever that Uber take up, it will not go to Bolt, will go and do it because when they do that, it will be the double problem. But these are the things that we need to explain to the government. And
so you're looking at the option of the government maybe subsidizing or giving you like a loan to convert your cars to use gas.
Even not only the government, even the company needs to come in. Because they make money from us.
But I mean, let's be realistic now. We see the Lagos State government, I'm sure you saw that report, what they have done. So they have reached out to vehicles that are being controlled by the state government, Lamata, the BRT and all of that, told them to slash by 25. And I think also for the yellow buses, the privately owned ones.
What happened in the yellow buses is that they cannot control yellow buses. But what they did is that, the yellow buses collect receipts every day on the road. The car park management sell receipts for them. That is how good the government come to give them the palliative. The receipt of 500 naira is now become 350 naira. And on that basis, government is expecting them not to increase the fare. Because
we had some of
because they cannot control it totally.
Yeah, but they've reduced it. Yeah. So for you, what can the government do to reduce it? You want to be part of the palliative. Yeah. I mean, the gas solution, obviously, it's where we are heading to. But at this time,
the immediate solution the government can do is that they should call us, and the road developments.
The 20 naira.
20 naira.
So if the government stops receiving the 20 naira from you, will you reduce your fares?
And that is why I said that the hard company needs to come in, because initially that money was removing from the customer according to the to the Uber claiming to the government, which is not. But let's say agree that it's removed from the customer. And then now they're going to be a palliative measure. And that palliative measure must, help our customer too, and they help us too.
Exactly.
So what they need to do on that 20 naira is to just divide it and make the other money to come to driver. But they cannot do it alone without us, because if at all they do it, the money may not come to us.
The money may not go.
Yes, not because who fetch their data? Who know how much they are paying?
Okay, so you're saying that if the government meets with you and the app companies, and then they agree to reduce or to remove the 20 naira, then that can trickle down to the to the price that you give to consumers.
Exactly, it's possible.
Okay, all right. So we are here to ask for it. I'm sure the government, the Lagos State government is listening, and the CNG approach, obviously, is what even the federal government is working and talking about.
But CNG of it things, we talk about security too. CNG, if they don't use the correct materials, is a time bomb at the back of your boot. So they must use
You're talking of safety.
Yes, they must use certification that make everybody safe on that, because the conversions, that tank you see, if they use original, the tank can never ever explode. But Nigeria factors, if they bring the one that is adulterated or the one that is just is a tank bomb.
I guess we should have faith, Mr. Ibrahim. It's a new project. So let's not think.
No, we have to talk about safety too, so that they will put it that whoever that want to do that installation must be able to be monitored, concerned to the safety. That is why I'm open that.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Ayuade Ibrahim, General Secretary of Amalgamated Union of App-Based Transport Workers. We do know that, of course, if not the governor representative of the government of Lagos State is listening, and the app workers are saying they need to talk, because those who also use the app-based taxis, they need palliative also. So can you work on this 20 naira? Perhaps the consumers will also feel the impact of that palliative. But thank you so much for coming on the show this morning.
Thank you.
All right, so everybody's asking for palliative. I guess I should also ask for mine too. But anyway, let's head to the market now. Anita Edet joins us with a summary of how the market fared. I think the FX markets will be the focus this morning. Anita, what's your palliative?
Well, I don't have a palliative yet.
Oh,
but
really?
I think I'll still look forward.
Maybe you should carry your placard and go to Alausa.
Honestly, I think I have to do that. Yeah. But you were talking about the FX markets. We'll be talking about three markets: the fixed income markets, the forex market, as well as the equities market. And of course, it was a bullish close for the week. Now, take a look at your board there. 14.56%, the value of transactions on the forex market, on the FMDQ's exchange, that's where the forex is traded, it was up by 14.56% in contrast to what you had the previous week. So as at August the 4th, 2023, what we had is total value of $455.12 million traded last week, and that's thanks to the 14.71% increase on the spot market. As you can see there, it also had about 99.81% volume of shares there at about $454.27 million. Now over to the flip side of that market, where you saw the Naira made another comeback. It was up by 0.81%. In contrast to what you had the previous week, 468 Naira 77 kobo. That's what it closed the week as at last week, and then that's coming from the 775 Naira 1 kobo, which it was the week before, which was sometime in July. Now, still talking about the forex market, we saw that last week the Nigeria's forex reserve, it made its first comeback after 10 weeks. It was up by $13.14 million to about $33.97 billion as of August the 2nd. But that's about $3.1 billion when you take a look at the amount that it opened at $37.07 billion as at January the 3rd this year. That's how it opened. But of course, the Forex reserve has been declining, and this is no thanks to a low inflow from the oil market, as well as CBN's constant intervention within this market. So that's one of the reasons why the Forex reserve has been declining. And of course, as of last week, Thursday, the Senate had raised alarm over the decline of the Forex, Nigeria's Forex reserves, of course, which is kind of like a danger point for us. So that's it for that market. Let's move over to the equities market, which made another comeback. Of course, 0.22%. That's what it closed for the week. And this is coming after we saw pockets of profit taking within the week, but so far the market was able to come back to the 65,000 points after dropping to about 64,000, but made a rebound back into the 65,000 level. And this is thanks to the likes of MTN Nigeria, some consumer goods sector, and as well as some industrial insurance sector components. That's what revved up the market. Month to date, we're at 1.6%. Year to date, we're at 27.21% for that market. Now, let's take a look at your sectoral performance. It was a mixed picture there for the sectoral performance. We saw profit taking hit the banking counter 2.13%. That's the impact it had on that market, as well as the oil and gas counter. It was down by 0.68%, almost 0.7%. But take a look at your board there. Consumer goods, 2.27%, and industrial goods, 0.23%. But the biggest was for the insurance subsector. Although it's a very small component when you look at the 5 key counters that we look here on the NGX, but it had the highest for the market for the sectoral performance, 5.88%, like I said earlier. Now, in terms of activity, there was a decline. We saw a 9.8% drop in the volume and a 21.3% in the value week on week for that market. And it's also coming at the time when the impact of Forex exchange losses is incurred in terms of Naira depreciation by several companies. Last week, several companies had released earnings report, full year and half year, and they were all complaining or attributing their losses to the Forex reserve, to the Forex markets unification, which was initially chaired, but at the same time it's having a negative impact. So tomorrow we'll be talking more about that, about how that has affected some companies, and then looking to how the month of August will play out for that market. Now take a look at the volume of transaction, like I said earlier, 2.57 billion volume of trades for last week at 29.61 billion naira, and it was down by 21.3% in contrast to what you had. So it's just a red for that market there. And of course, we've been talking about the fixed income market initially. That's one, the fixed income market for the bonds, it was bearish, but for the treasury bills, it was bullish. Now let's look over to the outlook. What are we to expect this week? Starting with the bonds market. The yields in the bonds market is expected to remain elevated in the medium term, and this is because the DMO is moderating its cost of borrowing. For the treasury bills market, we expect that the analysts and traders are expecting that the demands for instruments will weaken on the expectations of lower inflows into the system. And at the same time, there's going to be a primary market auction where the central bank will be rolling over about 153.99 billion naira worth of maturities at the PME auction. That will be on August the 9th, to be precise. For the money market, we're expecting that overnight lending rate will remain at the current level in the absence of any significant inflow into the financial system. While for the equities market, there's going to be more results from the market. So Tier 1 bank earnings is expected to support the positive sentiment amid anticipation of interim dividends. At the same time, macroeconomic developments and fixed income market yield is expected to also influence investors' sentiment in the medium term for the equities market. So, that's it for that market. I don't know what your take is on the market. It's the second week of August, and the time is ticking.
Wait and see, exactly. We'll watch and see. Keep our fingers crossed, as we always say. Thank you, Anita.
Pleasure.
All right, so now let's head to the crypto space and see what's going on there. And from the corner of my eyes, I can see it's not a very pleasant one at this time. Leads me, of course, to the conversation that I'm going to have later. Bitcoin is down again, lost 0.06%. Its dominance has also reduced from 48% to close to 48%, but 47.87%. Struggling, really struggling to get back to that 30,000 And I think just a couple of months ago, we had Bitcoin at 32,000, and we didn't know that it will go down this much. Ethereum is also following suit. It's now $1,837.17. That's down marginally 0.02%, but 0.02% can be a lot of money. And right here, it's more of red. But let's go in there and see the details of it. There you see the price there, still that 29 for Bitcoin. Ethereum is also 1,834. USD is down as BNB. Cardano is down, and XRP, I mean, maybe it's profit taking after some of those gains that it had, you know, over the case that it has with SEC, and it seems like it's winning a little bit now. It's losing all of that. Let's go now and see the top gainers for the day, at least for this morning. Not very impressive looking numbers. We can see XDC up just about 6.4%, Dash 4%. You know, you don't see anyone exceeding that. I think that XDCs are the highest that we can see at this time at $0.07. But let's see if we have joining us to kind of explain. Eliman Dambell now joins us. Eliman, good morning. But what's going on with Bitcoin? And there's also the talk about volatility explosion in Bitcoin. Has it started already?
Yeah, no, good morning. And yeah, no, I think what we see happening, and you rightly mentioned it, or someone referred to it as far as what we saw, I don't know, a few weeks ago with Ripple, and it had that explosion, and how that explosion somewhat transferred into the likes of Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the rest of the other altcoins. And yeah, since then we have seen a lot of profit taking, and volatility has somewhat been flat in the last few weeks. And as well, we're seeing traders react to what we see happening in the US. So, of course, over the last few days, we saw non-farm payrolls released less than expected. We're seeing a lot of equities somewhat outperform expectations as far as their Q2 earnings. So markets are reacting to that dollar story as well. So traders seem to be more focused on that market now, and with cryptos, it does seem like it is a lot of consolidation for the meantime. Yes.
So at this rate now, because last week we saw miners saying they will need Bitcoin to be at 98,000, you know, for the halving and all of that. At this rate, do you see Bitcoin hitting that 98,000? What will happen to the miners?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that possibility does exist in that regards. But just kind of looking at the technicals as well, I think once we see, and I think there is a strong possibility, just going back to the price, for it to cross that 30K level. And I think once it does, especially I'm looking at the charts now, looking at the 10-day moving average and the potential for that to cross over the 25-day. I think once that happens, the situation in terms of the miners and other fundamentals could lead to Bitcoin essentially going to 32K. So I think that the target, the overall target for Bitcoin bulls at the moment is 32K, and it's just a case of the road to that level seems to be very volatile.
Can it be artificially manipulated? For instance, let me give you an example. In the global oil space, we know two giant oil producers, Saudi Arabia and Russia, they cut their production, and that, of course, has pushed the price up. Can it be manipulated in that way, Bitcoin?
Not necessarily. I think that's of course, with OPEC, like what we saw with Saudi and Russia, again, coming together and deciding to lower output. With Bitcoin, you don't have a central party. So there isn't a de facto leader as Saudi Arabia. So that possibility doesn't exist to the same extent, to answer your question.
All right, because I was just wondering how we can go from struggling with 29,000, 28,000 to 98,000, and that's supposed to be next year, you know. But anyway, there's also this news about Huobi and companies, public companies connected to the crypto, releasing a lot of fantastic earnings at this time. Could you let us in on that?
Yeah, no, I think In general, what we're seeing out of the US, last week we saw, Apple and Amazon come out with better than expected earnings. The week before that, we saw Meta and Microsoft come out with similar numbers. So in general, we're moving away from the narrative of potentially entering a global recession or recession in the US. And I think now we're starting to see more optimism on that side of the fence. And when we do see strong equities, typically that does increase the strength of the dollar. And what we are seeing is a bit of a correlation between the equities, the dollar, and now the price of Bitcoin, where traders and investors seem to be essentially going where the opportunity is. So traders seem to be flowing towards those markets because those markets are where the action seems to be. And I think for now, Bitcoin is essentially the calm before the storm. That's the best way to describe what's happening with cryptos at the moment. The calm before the storm. But typically, we do see towards the end of August, beginning of September, there is a lot of volatility in Bitcoin. So I think that's what traders should be looking forward to.
And I guess the issues around Binance by different countries now will only add to that volatility.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think what we saw with the SEC and Ripple, for example, that gave a lot of optimism to the space, to the likes of Binance, to the likes of Coinbase, and that they can overcome some of their own issues. So I think there's a lot more optimism than there was, let's say, a month ago prior to the Ripple ruling. So I think there is some optimism. And again, those issues will always come, similar to what we saw a few months ago when a lot of crypto exchanges were going out of business and things of that nature. And we saw the quote-unquote global banking crisis, but that came and went, and markets have still essentially remained at the same levels to where they were before. So I think there's a lot more optimism than pessimism in the space as of now.
I guess that optimism can lead some risk-hungry investors to get on board the crypto space.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think now, if you're looking at it relative to where it was, a year, 2 years ago when it was trading over 40K, traders are looking at this as a perfect opportunity to quote-unquote buy the dip. You aren't seeing that reflect in the prices of yet because, again, it does need some fundamentals to go its way, and I think markets are just waiting for that next fundamental. We saw a glimpse of it with what happened with Ripple, and I think now there's again storm before the calm before the storm, waiting for that next move.
Okay, just before you step on your thought, before we let you go, man, tell us what's going on with XRP. We did see XRP losing about 5%. I know they were glorying. Is it profit taking or is it the issues with SEC again? XRP.
No, yeah, with Ripple, what we saw with XRP, that initial move, of course, initially it was profit taking. Just to quickly answer your question, initially it was profit taking, but just going back to what happened around that ruling, it was a win in the moment. So it wasn't a grand win. There are still some issues to be resolved, and we are seeing traders essentially react to that. So traders were buoyant initially, but now you are seeing somewhat the fall back to reality. So it's still trading above the pre-ruling levels, so it hasn't been full profit taking as of yet. But and it does look, I'm just looking at the RSI now for Ripple as well. So it's heading to oversold territory. So I wouldn't be surprised if it lands on a floor of around 50 cents. And I think from there is where we could see traders begin to buy again.
All right, finally now, where do you see Bitcoin ending this week? You see a recovery?
I do see it potentially breaking 30K. Of course, it depends on what happens with the inflation number coming out of the US. I think that's the headline target for this week in terms of traders paying attention to in terms of economical data. So depending on what happens this coming Wednesday with inflation, I do see Bitcoin potentially going back above 30K.
All right, we'll look forward to that and see how the market reacts. Thank you so much, Eliman Dumbell, our technical analyst this morning, for your views.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. All right, so there we see. We hope that the inflation numbers will favor Bitcoin. That's for investors of Bitcoin or in the crypto space generally. But we've seen earnings from companies related or connected to cryptocurrency making good records for half of the year. So who knows? With all of the ban on Binance and the risks connected to all of it, it seems some people just want to go headlong and like, yeah, let's face the risk and make some money. Well, that's a wrap on the program this morning. Thank you so much for being a part of this 55 minutes. I hope it's been informative, giving you current and relevant business conversations right here. And then we'll do it again tomorrow, God's grace. But I'll see you at 1:30 for Business Incorporated. By then, we'll have some updates from the world of business. So Business Incorporated will give that to you. I'll see you. For now, do have a good day and make some money.